Impermanence is not a concept to be understood intellectually. It is a reality to be faced directly. Everything you see, touch, desire, fear, and identify with is in motion. Nothing stands still, even when it appears solid. The moment you believe something has finally settled, it is already changing. This is not pessimism. This is precision. The human mind resists impermanence because it threatens the illusion of control. We want permanence in relationships, stability in emotions, certainty in outcomes, and guarantees in life. We build identities as if they are structures carved in stone, forgetting they are made of sand. When change arrives, as it always does, the untrained mind experiences shock, loss, and suffering, not because change is cruel, but because attachment was careless. Impermanence is not the problem. Clinging is. Look closely at nature. No season apologizes for ending. No leaf negotiates with time. Birth and decay are not enemies, they are partners. Yet the human being insists on freezing moments, preserving feelings, and locking people into versions that no longer exist. This resistance creates inner conflict. You fight life and life never loses. When you truly understand impermanence, urgency appears. Not panic, not anxiety, but clarity. You stop wasting energy on what cannot last. You stop delaying what matters. You stop assuming you will always have time. Time is not owned. It is borrowed. Most people live as if life will inform them before it changes. They believe there will be warnings, signals, and soft transitions. But impermanence does not announce itself. One day someone is present, the next they are gone. One day the body obeys, the next it weakens. One day confidence feels natural, the next it disappears. The shock comes not from loss, but from expectation. Expectation is built on the false belief of permanence. When you accept impermanence deeply, emotional maturity develops. You love without possession. You care without dependency. You engage fully while remaining unattached to outcomes. This is not detachment from life. It is intimacy with reality. You show up completely because you know nothing is guaranteed. Paradoxically, acceptance of impermanence allows deeper connection, not less. Fear grows where permanence is assumed. When you believe something should last forever, you become afraid of losing it. This fear changes behavior. You become controlling. You become anxious. You become defensive. Impermanence dissolves this fear because it removes entitlement. Nothing owes you continuity. Even the self you protect so fiercely is temporary. Your opinions evolve. Your priorities shift. The person you were 5 years ago is already gone. The person you will be 5 years from now has not arrived. Holding rigidly to identity creates internal friction. You suffer trying to remain who you no longer are. Training the mind to accept impermanence requires discipline, not motivation. Discipline. You sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. You observe emotions instead of becoming them. You allow experiences to pass through without trying to imprison them. This is strength. Weakness is demanding permanence from a temporary world. Impermanence sharpens attention. When you know a moment will not return, you become present. Distraction loses appeal. Trivial conflicts lose importance. You listen more carefully. You speak more honestly. You act with intention. Awareness grows because you stop assuming repetition. People often say they want peace, but they resist impermanence. This is contradiction. Peace does not come from stability. It comes from adaptability. A rigid tree breaks in a storm. A flexible one survives. The mind is no different. Understanding impermanence also humbles ambition. You still work. You still strive. But you do not confuse achievement with identity. Success becomes an experience, not a definition. Failure becomes a moment, not a verdict. This balance protects you from arrogance and despair. Grief too is shaped by impermanence. Loss hurts because attachment imagined permanence. When impermanence is accepted early, grief becomes cleaner. It is still painful, but it is not poisonous. You feel the loss without adding resentment toward reality. Impermanence teaches responsibility. If everything changes, then how you live now matters. Your words matter. Your actions matter. Not because they last forever, but because they shape this moment. Meaning does not require permanence. Meaning requires presence. The disciplined individual prepares for impermanence daily. They train the body, knowing strength fades. They train the mind, knowing clarity drifts. They train awareness, knowing distraction seduces. Preparation is not about preventing change, it is about meeting it without collapse. When impermanence is fully integrated, urgency becomes calm. You do not rush, yet you do not delay. You move with quiet precision. You understand that life is not waiting for you to be ready. You are already inside it. To live with impermanence is to stop bargaining with time. You no longer say when things settle or once everything is secure. Security is temporary. Settlement is temporary. Waiting postpones life. Impermanence strips away illusion and leaves only what is real: this breath, this step, this moment of awareness. Nothing else can be held. Nothing else needs to be held. Death has been misunderstood for as long as humans have been afraid to look at themselves honestly. It has been painted as the ultimate threat, the final injustice, the great enemy waiting in the shadows. Yet death itself is neutral. It arrives without intention, without malice, without cruelty. What truly devastates a human being is not the end of life, but reaching that end having never been fully awake within it. Unconscious living is the real danger. It is the slow erosion of awareness through routine, distraction, and fear. It is existing on autopilot, repeating days without reflection, reacting instead of choosing, surviving instead of living. A person can breathe for decades and still never truly be alive. When death comes to such a person, it feels like theft, not because life was taken too early, but because it was never used. Most fear of death is actually fear of unfinished living. It is the anxiety of realizing time was spent numbing rather than experiencing, pleasing rather than becoming, delaying rather than deciding. Death only exposes what was already present. It does not create regret, it reveals it. An unconscious life is comfortable on the surface. It avoids discomfort, avoids silence, avoids responsibility. It fills every empty space with noise, stimulation, and explanation. But comfort dulls awareness. When awareness fades, time disappears as unnoticed. Years pass without depth. Conversations lack presence. Choices are made by habit rather than intention. When death is avoided as a topic, life becomes shallow. The mind, refusing to acknowledge an ending, assumes infinity. This assumption breeds laziness of spirit. Later becomes the most used word. Later I will change. Later I will speak honestly. Later I will live the way I know I should. Later becomes never. Death is not cruel for ending life. Unconscious living is cruel for wasting it. Awareness transforms the relationship with death. When you remember that life is finite, clarity sharpens. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop shrinking your truth to maintain comfort. You stop postponing alignment. Not because you are afraid, but because you are awake. An awake person does not obsess over death. They respect it. They understand it gives shape to life. Without an ending, moments would be meaningless. Urgency would disappear. Presence would fade. Death is what makes now important. Unconscious living separates the body from the mind and the mind from reality. You move without feeling, speak without listening, eat without tasting, love without depth. You perform roles instead of inhabiting them. Over time, this separation creates emptiness. People then blame life for feeling hollow, never realizing they were absent from it. Discipline is the bridge out of unconsciousness. Discipline of attention, discipline of action, discipline of silence. When you sit still without distraction, the mind resists. When you train the body, discomfort arises. These moments reveal how conditioned and reactive you have become. Awareness grows only where avoidance stops. Death does not steal potential. Unconscious living dissolves it daily. Many people reach milestones, success, relationships, status, yet feel nothing. This numbness is not depression, it is disconnection. They were present physically, but absent mentally. Achievements earned without awareness carry no weight. They do not satisfy because the self was not there to receive them. When awareness is cultivated, even ordinary moments become rich. Walking becomes grounding. Breathing becomes noticeable. Listening becomes intimate. Life regains texture. In such a state, death loses its terror. It becomes a natural closing, not an interruption. The tragedy is not dying young or old. The tragedy is never meeting yourself while alive, never testing your courage, never exploring your depth, never questioning your conditioning. Unconscious living keeps you safe from discomfort, but also safe from truth. To live consciously is to take responsibility for your inner state, no longer blaming circumstances for your reactions, no longer numbing pain instead of understanding it, no longer hiding behind distractions. Awareness requires courage because it removes excuses. Death arrives once. Unconscious living happens every day. When people say they are afraid of dying, what they often mean is they are afraid of realizing too late that they lived according to someone else's expectations, that they ignored their intuition, that they traded authenticity for approval. Death does not cause this realization, awareness does. Death simply makes avoidance impossible. If you live consciously, death does not come as a shock. It comes as completion. There is no panic because nothing essential was postponed. Words were spoken. Boundaries were honored. Presence was practiced. An awake life is not a perfect life. It includes pain, failure, and uncertainty. But these are experienced fully, not resisted or suppressed. Awareness allows you to meet each experience directly, without distortion. The enemy was never death. Death is honest. It ends what exists. Unconscious living is deceptive. It convinces you that existing is enough, that tomorrow is guaranteed, that awareness can wait. Attachment begins subtly. It does not arrive as weakness. It disguises itself as love, ambition, loyalty, or security. It tells the mind that holding on is strength, that possession equals safety, that certainty equals peace. Over time, this belief tightens. What once felt supportive becomes heavy. The mind that clings loses flexibility, and flexibility is the foundation of resilience. Attachment weakens the mind because it narrows perception. When you are attached, you stop seeing reality as it is and start seeing it as you want it to remain. You defend images, roles, and outcomes instead of responding to what is actually happening. The mind becomes reactive, easily disturbed, easily threatened. Any challenge to what you are attached to feels like an attack on the self. The problem is not caring. The problem is identification. When your sense of self fuses with a person, an outcome, a belief, or an image, the mind loses balance. Fear enters. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of uncertainty. This fear dictates behavior. You compromise values. You tolerate disrespect. You abandon clarity to preserve comfort. A strong mind can hold without gripping. A weak mind grasps. Attachment demands control. When you are attached, you try to manage people, situations, and emotions so they align with your expectations. When reality refuses to cooperate, frustration rises, anger surfaces, anxiety grows. None of this comes from the external situation, it comes from internal resistance. Look at how attachment distorts judgment. A person attached to approval avoids truth. A person attached to comfort avoids growth. A person attached to identity avoids evolution. Each attachment becomes a boundary around the mind, limiting its movement. Freedom decreases as attachment increases. The body understands this intuitively. When you hold your breath, tension builds. When you release it, relief comes. The mind works the same way. Holding creates strain. Releasing restores balance. Yet the untrained mind believes holding is survival. Attachment also amplifies suffering. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Suffering arises when pain meets resistance. Loss hurts, but attachment turns loss into collapse. Change is uncomfortable, but attachment turns change into chaos. The intensity of suffering reflects the depth of attachment. People often believe attachment gives life meaning. In truth, it gives life fragility. When meaning depends on external permanence, stability is impossible. You become emotionally dependent on conditions you cannot control. This dependence weakens inner authority. Discipline reveals attachment. When you remove distractions, attachments surface. When you sit in silence, the mind reaches for something to hold on to. When you face discomfort, attachments demand escape. This is why discipline is uncomfortable. It exposes dependency. A disciplined mind practices non-attachment not by rejecting life, but by engaging fully without possession. You participate without insisting. You love without imprisoning. You work without clinging to outcome. This creates strength. Strength comes from adaptability, not rigidity. Attachment also distorts memory. You cling to how things were, not how they are. You compare the present to an imagined past and judge it as inferior. This creates dissatisfaction. The mind lies behind reality, chasing echoes. Identity is one of the strongest attachments. Titles, roles, beliefs, and narratives give structure, but clinging to them creates stagnation. When life demands change, the attached mind resists. It would rather suffer than evolve. This resistance creates internal conflict and external struggle. Letting go is not loss. It is alignment. When you release attachment, clarity returns. Energy once spent defending illusions becomes available for action. The mind becomes spacious. Decisions become clean. Fear diminishes because there is less to protect. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It means stability. You still care, but your inner state is not hostage to outcomes. You can respond instead of react. You can adjust instead of break. Observe moments when attachment weakens you. When a message is delayed and anxiety rises. When praise is absent and self-worth drops. When plans change and anger appears. These reactions are signals. They reveal where the mind has tied its balance to external conditions. Strength comes from loosening these ties, from training the mind to remain steady regardless of gain or loss. This steadiness is not coldness. It is composure. A mind free from attachment is not passive. It is precise. It chooses deliberately rather than compulsively. It engages deeply without fear of loss. It knows that everything is temporary, so nothing needs to be possessed. Attachment narrows life. Non-attachment expands it. When you stop clinging, experience flows. Relationships become cleaner. Work becomes purposeful. Presence deepens. The mind becomes strong not by holding more, but by needing less. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, punishment, or severity. In truth, discipline is preparation. It is the quiet, consistent training that allows you to meet life without panic. When difficulty arrives, the disciplined person does not search for strength. It is already there, built through repetition, restraint, and awareness. Life does not warn you before it tests you. Loss, pressure, uncertainty, and pain arrive without notice. Those who rely on motivation collapse when conditions turn unfavorable. Motivation is emotional and unstable. Discipline is steady. It does not depend on mood, inspiration, or external encouragement. It prepares you in advance for moments you cannot predict. Preparation is not dramatic. It is ordinary. Waking up when the body wants to sleep, continuing when the mind wants comfort, staying present when distraction calls. These small acts shape the nervous system. Over time, discipline conditions the body and mind to remain functional under stress. A disciplined body does not panic at discomfort. It recognizes strain as familiar territory. Training teaches the body that difficulty is survivable. This physical understanding transfers to the mind. When pressure appears, the response is measured, not frantic. Discipline also refines attention. When you train consistently, you learn to focus on process rather than outcome. You stop demanding immediate results. You learn patience. This patience becomes stability. Stability becomes confidence. Confidence built through discipline is not loud. It is quiet and unshakable. Without discipline, the mind becomes reactive. It chases pleasure and avoids discomfort. This pattern weakens resilience. When discomfort becomes unavoidable, the undisciplined mind seeks escape. It blames circumstances. It looks for shortcuts. Preparation is replaced by excuse. Discipline removes illusion. It exposes where you are inconsistent, lazy, or distracted. This exposure can feel uncomfortable, but it is honest. Discipline does not judge. It reveals. What you do repeatedly becomes who you are. A disciplined life reduces fear. Fear thrives in unpredictability. When your habits are unstable, your confidence is unstable. When your training is irregular, your self-trust erodes. Discipline restores trust in yourself. You know you will show up regardless of conditions. Preparation through discipline also clarifies values. You stop negotiating with yourself. Decisions become simple because standards are established. When standards are clear, energy is conserved. Doubt decreases. Internal conflict fades. Discipline is not about control over life. It is about control over response. You cannot dictate events, but you can train how you meet them. This training creates freedom. Freedom does not come from unlimited choice. It comes from the ability to liberate under pressure. Many avoid discipline because it removes excuses. Once you commit, there is no one to blame. This responsibility feels heavy at first. Over time, it becomes empowering. Responsibility gives direction. Direction gives meaning. Discipline is cumulative. Each small act builds capacity. Each refusal to quit strengthens resolve. Each moment of restraint sharpens awareness. You may not feel stronger immediately, but strength is accumulating beneath the surface. The disciplined person prepares even when things are calm. They do not wait for crisis to train. They understand that preparation after impact is too late. Training must happen before the storm, not during it. Discipline also creates humility. You confront your limits daily. You see how often the mind resists effort. This awareness softens arrogance. You stop overestimating willpower and start respecting consistency. A life without discipline becomes fragile. Minor disruptions cause major reactions. Discipline creates durability. You bend without breaking. You adapt without losing direction. Preparation is not about perfection. It is about readiness. Discipline does not eliminate fear or pain. It builds the capacity to move through them without collapse. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You become someone who trains. This shift is subtle but powerful. Training implies continuity. Trying implies hesitation. Discipline simplifies life. You waste less energy deciding. Habits replace chaos. Routine creates space for depth. When the basics are handled, awareness expands. When discipline becomes internal, it no longer feels forced, it becomes natural. The mind aligns with effort. Resistance decreases. Preparation continues without drama. Discipline is the quiet work that makes you capable before capability is demanded. Presence is rare, and rarity defines value. In a world saturated with noise, speed, and distraction, the ability to remain fully here has become more valuable than possessions, status, or influence. Presence cannot be bought, inherited, or borrowed. It must be cultivated, and it must be protected. Those who lack it may appear busy, successful, and connected, yet internally they are fragmented, pulled in multiple directions, never fully inhabiting the moment they are in. Most people live either ahead of themselves or behind themselves. The mind rehearses the future or replays the past, while the body remains in the present without guidance. This separation drains energy. Anxiety lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. Presence exists only now, and now is where life actually happens. Wealth is often measured by accumulation. Presence is measured by depth. One moment lived fully outweighs years lived unconsciously. When you are present, experience becomes vivid. Colors sharpen, sounds deepen, interactions slow down, life regains texture. Distraction has become normalized. Constant stimulation trains the mind to avoid stillness. Silence feels uncomfortable because it reveals what has been ignored. Presence requires facing this discomfort. When distractions are removed, the mind resists. It seeks movement. It seeks escape. This resistance is the gateway. Passing through it leads to clarity. Presence is not passivity. It is engagement without interference. When you are present, you respond rather than react. You listen rather than wait to speak. You observe rather than judge. This quality transforms relationships. People feel seen. Communication becomes efficient. Conflict loses intensity. A present mind is difficult to disturb. External chaos does not automatically create internal chaos. You notice emotions without becoming them. You experience thoughts without obeying them. This creates space. Space creates choice. Choice creates freedom. Presence is built through discipline. Attention must be trained. The mind will not naturally stay still. It has been conditioned to seek stimulation. Training attention is like strengthening a muscle. At first, fatigue appears quickly. Over time, endurance develops. When presence increases, time seems to expand. You do not rush. You do not feel chased. Urgency becomes calm. Tasks are completed with care rather than haste. Efficiency improves because energy is not scattered. Presence reveals truth. When you are fully here, self-deception becomes difficult. You notice when actions misalign with values. You feel when something is wrong instead of rationalizing it. This honesty can be uncomfortable, but it is clean. Many seek wealth to gain security. Presence provides security from within. When you are present, you do not need constant reassurance. You trust your perception. You trust your ability to respond. This trust reduces dependence on external validation. Presence also dissolves fear. Fear thrives on imagined outcomes. When attention returns to now, imagined futures lose power. You deal with what exists, not what might. This simplicity is stabilizing. Even pain changes under presence. Pain felt fully does not multiply. Resisted pain spreads. Presence allows experience to move through without stagnation. This is why awareness reduces suffering without eliminating difficulty. A present life is not an easy life. It is an honest one. You feel more, not less. But feeling deeply does not weaken you. It strengthens you by removing numbness. Presence sharpens discipline. When you are present, you notice when effort drops, when excuses arise, when shortcuts tempt you. Awareness interrupts automatic behavior. You regain control of action. The highest form of respect you can give another person is presence. Undivided attention communicates value without words. In a distracted world, presence is generosity. Presence also reconnects you to the body. Breathing becomes noticeable. Posture adjusts naturally. Tension releases. The body stops being a vehicle and becomes a partner. When presence becomes habitual, life simplifies. You stop chasing meaning and start inhabiting it. Meaning is not found in accumulation. It is found in participation. Everything that matters happens now, not later, not before. The past is memory. The future is projection. Presence is reality. Those who cultivate presence become wealthy in a way that cannot be taken. Circumstances change. Possessions fade. Attention remains. Presence is not something you achieve once. It is something you return to repeatedly. Each return strengthens it. When presence is established, nothing essential is missing. Peace is often misunderstood as the absence of difficulty, noise, or conflict. In reality, peace is the ability to remain steady regardless of what arises. This steadiness does not come from luck or favorable circumstances. It is the result of preparation. When preparation is present, the mind does not panic. When preparation is absent, even small disruptions feel overwhelming. Preparation creates peace because it removes uncertainty from the self. Life will always remain uncertain. Events will not follow plans. People will change. Conditions will shift. Preparation does not attempt to control these variables. It strengthens the inner structure so external instability does not create internal collapse. An unprepared mind lives reactively. It waits until pressure appears before responding. By then, clarity is already compromised. Stress narrows perception. Emotion overrides judgment. This is not failure, it is predictability. The nervous system reacts the way it has been trained. Preparation is training. Peace is not a state you wait for. It is a capacity you build. Preparation begins with honesty. You look at your weaknesses without denial. You acknowledge where you avoid effort, where you escape discomfort, where you rely on hope instead of action. This self-awareness is uncomfortable, but it is grounding. From honesty, structure forms. Structure is calming. Routine reduces chaos. When the basics are handled consistently, the mind relaxes. You no longer waste energy deciding what to do next. This conservation of energy creates calm. Preparation also builds trust in yourself. When you know you have trained, you stop doubting your ability to respond. This trust is quiet. It does not need affirmation. It shows up under pressure as steadiness. Many seek peace by removing challenges. This is temporary. Life reintroduces difficulty without permission. True peace comes from readiness. When you are ready, challenges do not threaten your identity. Preparation is layered. Physical preparation strengthens the nervous system. Mental preparation sharpens perception. Emotional preparation builds regulation. Each layer supports the others. Neglect one, and peace becomes fragile. Prepared individuals do not avoid discomfort. They meet it deliberately. Training teaches the body and mind that discomfort is survivable. This understanding dissolves fear. Fear feeds on unfamiliarity. Preparation removes unfamiliarity. Peace also arises from reducing dependence. When you depend heavily on outcomes, people, or conditions, peace becomes conditional. Preparation builds independence. Not isolation, but self-sufficiency. You rely on your training, not on favorable circumstances. Preparedness simplifies decisions. When standards are clear, hesitation disappears. You know what you will tolerate and what you will not. Boundaries reduce internal conflict. Reduced conflict creates peace. Preparation does not eliminate emotion. It regulates it. You still feel anger, sadness, and fear, but these emotions pass through without taking control. Regulation is not suppression. It is awareness paired with restraint. Peace grows as reaction decreases. Reaction is energy without direction. Preparation provides direction. When something unexpected happens, the prepared mind pauses, it assesses, it responds. This pause is peace. Preparation also changes how you relate to the future. Instead of worrying about what might happen, you focus on what you can train now. This focus anchors attention in action. Action quiets anxiety. The prepared person does not rush. Urgency becomes calm because there is confidence in readiness. You move at the speed required, not at the speed demanded by fear. Peace is reinforced through consistency. Sporadic effort creates instability. Consistent preparation builds reliability. Reliability builds calm. Preparation also teaches acceptance. You prepare for loss, change, and endings by understanding they are inevitable. Acceptance reduces shock. Reduced shock preserves peace. A prepared mind does not cling to illusions. It knows plans may fail. Relationships may end. Health may decline. This awareness does not create despair. It creates alignment. You value what is present without demanding permanence. Peace is often mistaken for passivity. Prepared peace is active. It is alert without tension, ready without aggression, open without vulnerability. Preparation removes the need for control. When you trust your ability to respond, you stop trying to manage everything. This release is peaceful. Every small act of preparation strengthens peace. Every moment of discipline adds stability. Every honest assessment reduces fear. Peace is not found after life becomes safe. It is built before life becomes difficult. Preparation creates peace